Welcome, everybody. We're back at the Contech Exec. I have a very, very special guest today. I am with Neil Shah, the CEO of CFMA. And man, I'm telling you right now, I've been waiting for this one, Neil. Thank you so much for joining me. I know we've had a chance to speak a few times, but I'm glad I wanted to get you on camera here today and just get you on the podcast and let everybody know the cool stuff that you know that you and I have talked about. So.
Well, Robert, thank you very much for having me. I don't know how cool it is, but I love talking about construction. I love talking about construction finance. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, and speaking of being glad to be here, there's a journey that you take, right? You've had an interesting journey, and I'd like to know, and the folks out there would like to know too, what does that journey look like for you? How did you get to be at CFMA and the position that you're in?
Wow. Well, I started out life wanting to be, a pilot for the Air Force and an aerospace engineer, and, worked for an aircraft engine company for about 10 years because I never made it to the pilot seat and never made it to NASA, but I was able to work near airplanes, which I still love being around because I travel so much. 10 years at Pratt & Whitney led me to a real estate services startup that was ultimately bought by a large energy outfit in Houston, Texas, which no longer exists, called Enron. Had that experience that you couldn't buy in a business school, which was fantastic. Worked for a number of different, outsourced services providers and real estate services firms on the emerging growth side, which I really enjoy tinkering with as an engineer. I like tinkering with businesses as well as engines, right? So that led me to an organization called the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, which is a global association for people in real estate and construction. All trade, valuation, brokerage, project managers, the whole gamut of the built environment. And I was fortunate enough to be found by CFMA when they were looking for a CEO, 2.5, 3 years ago. And, I've been drinking from the fire hose ever since. There's nothing like CFMA anywhere in the world, having been all over the world working in real estate and construction, where the intersection of construction and finance occurs. It's a unique profession, and the individuals that are our members are quite unique in terms of the impact that they have on the industry.
It is definitely an interesting place to be. You and I kind of started off on similar paths. I also wanted to be part of NASA. I wanted to be, and that I actually started off in aerospace engineering at Purdue University, and I lasted a few years, and then ended switching over to electrical engineering, and then somehow randomly ended up framing houses. And
I tell you that the jet fuel never leaves your blood, though. I mean, I love airplanes. I love things like Top Gun. Artemis was over the moon, no pun intended for me.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, so my dad worked for General Motors, Allison gas turbine, actually for years, and so he was in the airplane business, gas turbine business. V-22 Osprey, you see him all the time now. That was one of his big projects. He worked on those, engines and the tilt rotors and all that kind of stuff. So he would bring that. I guess I came by it naturally, being interested in aviation and being interested in wanting to be, a pilot or anything like that. But I get, not a pilot, but hey, I still love it.
Yep.
Probably just like you do.
Yep.
So, when you and I got together, we were talking about, emerging technology, things like that for CFMA and how they're kind of experiencing, how is CFMA, how are they getting into that? What are their views? What's the feedback you're getting about emerging technologies?
Well, great question. Our members are typically accounting professionals, controllers, CFOs of construction firms, middle market to the large GCs. They no longer look through the rearview mirror at simply financial reporting. And I don't want to say simply, but financial reporting and cash management and all the things that are rearview mirror are still important to them. But increasingly, they're being asked to look through the windshield and look at what the future brings for their firms, for the industry, talent, risk management, succession planning, ESOPs and private equity. But technology is a big portion of what's on their plate. And everything from the ERP to payments platforms to HRIS to not only that, but investing in the technology that helps out in the field and project management and job site technology. So they are critical to the success of implementing technology in a way that helps them be more productive in the back office as well as out in the field, but also helps them really be competitive in a landscape that's changing by the day. And artificial intelligence, AI is a trite phrase that's thrown out there across the board. It's driving our markets, but really it's something that you either, are embracing in your workflows and becoming more scalable and more efficient and more productive, or you're going to be outbid by somebody that is doing it. So it's an important part of the discourse and the debate that our members are having, and it's a larger and larger part of the content and the conversation that we want to make sure that our members are involved in.
Yeah, I think that leads to the whole, what does your membership look like? What does the finance professional look like in the age of AI? The way I look at it is kind of the way that you do, in the fact that the technology is here. It's not any different, really, as far as I can tell at this point, than when the internet came to being, or when BIM technology started to come into construction and people were like, oh, everybody's going to have to get into BIM, or digital twins, or, we're all going to have to start using drones for all that. It's a part of what we're going to have to do in construction. It's a part of it, but it's not all of it. AI, at this point, we're probably not going to let it take over the world.
Let's hope not. Otherwise, we'll have a lot of time to do these podcasts.
Yeah, that's it. We have good conversations about what it used to be like.
Be honest, I think this transformation may be a little bit different in my personal opinion. I think we've always gone through these transformations, and you articulated a few of them. We're going to need to find ways of helping professionals incorporate the emerging technology and be part of the transformation and not be disrupted by the transformation solely. I think AI specifically has a lot of benefits for the construction financial professional, has a lot of benefits and opportunities to improve workflow and streamline the way the data is managed in the back office. Part of what happens with a finance and accounting department and the CFO who's trying to put a dashboard together about what the future looks like. So being able to do that in a much more effective way, that's more real time, that's more connected to the field, those are all opportunities that will make hopefully the lives of these individuals a little bit simpler and more effective in terms of the impact they have on their firms. But it also addresses, what is increasingly a shortage in people coming into the field, right? Coming into the profession. There's fewer accountants that are graduating university. People come to this profession not only from a CPA background, but they come from other backgrounds. So they're going to need to learn all of those domains of a construction financial professional. But construction itself will continue to grow. We need places to live, work, and play, and we need artisans or tradespeople that are going to create physically, until the robots come and do some of their work, but physically create that built environment. And as that pie grows, the need for people that can do what our members do is going to continue to be there. They will be more efficient, and the ones that embrace it will have more opportunities than the ones that don't.
Well, yeah, I have been thinking about this a lot in preparing for our conversation here today, Neil. Quite honestly, you and I we had lunch and we sat and we chatted, and I, the stuff that we talked about keeps kind of going over in my brain, and I'm sitting there. I talk to not only construction professionals, but I talk to contact founders, and I talk to the other day, venture capitalist folks on, people who are into this industry where they're investing, big dollars and a lot of time into, their technology. And the one thing I keep thinking about is like, well, have you talked to CFMA? I mean, your product, let's say it's a contact founder. Have you talked to anybody at CFMA about getting somebody with a construction financial management, background, maybe a certification, a part of your product? Because quite honestly, if you don't, like if you're doing a payroll type system, or if you're working in an ERP and you don't have these professionals that are helping you with your product, that's a bad idea. Right? Because you're coming in blind. A CPA is not the same thing as a construction CPA. It's just not, totally different. So you've got a huge industry out here, this technology industry that's trying to disrupt construction somehow, yet they have zero knowledge of how that finance runs. And you've got 11,000 people over there going, hey, by the way, yeah, we know how this gets done. And by the way, we've been there and we've done that. And I can tell you what your problem is.
You know, what's funny, you use the phrase construction CPA, which we use for our certification, the CCIFP, quite a bit, right? It's very particular, you know, the accounting for construction is very unique. You know, we've got concepts of retainage and percentage of completion and work in progress that are different than maybe a traditional finance and accounting environment. Our CFOs, our members are so uniquely tied to the manufacturing process of what happens out in the field. So we believe that having a CCIFP sets you apart as a construction financial professional. But we also believe, and you said something that's unique, is that those service providers, whether you're a CPA firm, you're the surety bond producer, you're a technology HRIS implementer, understanding their world is important. So being proficient in the language of the construction financial professional makes you a better partner as you're trying to work with them to provide assurance on their books or to give them more bonding capacity, or you're their bank that's providing working capital. So our desire is not only to have the construction CFO, who's the primary general member of CFMA, be certified with a CCIFP, but those in the enabling infrastructure of the entire ecosystem be proficient in some of those domains so that they can be better partners. Now, the second part of what you said is, well, why don't those other firms know as much about CFMA? We've been around for 45 years to really, you know, the cornerstone of what we do is construction financial education. And that's why we were founded 45 years ago here in New Jersey by a gentleman by the name of David Casey, who's our founder. But we also have built a community over those 45 years of people in 90 plus different markets, 11,000, as you said, and it's only scratching the surface of what's out there in terms of the construction industry. So the third leg of our stool, yes, we want to continue to be, make sure that construction financial professionals are proficient in the domains, that they have a place where they can have networking with their peers and build a community, but building recognition for what they do out in the rest of the industry and the rest of the ecosystem is going to be a large part of our strategic plan and our strategic growth over the next 5 years.
I couldn't agree more. That is definitely the direction y'all need to be going in. I also look at it too, if I think about ownership side, and I kind of got two thoughts going in my head at the same time. If you're an owner out there and you're building product or you're building a building, you have projects, you also need somebody like that as well that understands construction, especially if you're building large products, large building, maybe mega projects, capital projects, these data center projects. I really feel like you need somebody on your team that already knows construction accounting because it is so different. So that way you're not lost. And the reason is because of what you talked about earlier. It's the language. Speaking the language, understanding it goes to the whole thing of data governance, which is a technology thing. When we start to talk about being able to implement any sort of number crunching, you've got to have good data governance. Meaning your definitions have to be the same across the board in order for whatever digital platform you're using to recognize the terms that you're using so that you're getting the calculations correct, right? It's kind of computer 101 really, but construction, has been known not to do that very well. Even context somehow, even though they may be stressing the fact that, you need to adjust your data governance. Well, if they don't know the terms, how are they going to get to where they need to go? That's what I was saying when I'm thinking. I was like, there's so many areas for folks that understand construction finance to really go into here. You don't have to go to a construction company. You could go work for a contact company. You could go work for an owner group that's building buildings or building infrastructure or building bridges. I don't care what it is. There's a lot of things out there that we need these folks for.
Robert, I couldn't have said that better myself, right? I mean, we are centric around the construction firm, but the construction firm's enabling infrastructure includes the construction technology, the ERP, the CPA. The owners having that kind of understanding of what good looks like and a benchmark of the firms that are helping build their projects, I think is critically important. And having an individual on their team that understands the nuances of what's happening in the project, because they're typically very complex. You not only have a construction manager or GC, you might have partners that are working together on that project. You have a myriad, a stable of different subcontractors of all different trades that are involved in that. And there's a flow of information that needs to be available to the owner that says, am I going to get my project delivered on time, on budget? I'm already dealing with, very tight timelines and very low margins from a GC perspective. All of that sharing of information and having project availability and ensuring that they understand kind of what the work in progress looks like and what the impact to their cash flow and their financials are is part of what we, our members do day in and day out.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing. That's what has been on my mind about this whole thing. When we start talking about it, it's so strange. Construction for me has provided every bit of opportunity that I've ever wanted in my life, even though I didn't think I wanted it. Obviously, I wanted to be an engineer, worked in aerospace engineering, wanted to do those things. But then all of a sudden, I found myself framing houses, and I made this 35-year career in construction. Going, there is so much here, but yet strangely, we're short on help. Right? We're not pushing the right direction for some reason, but yeah, and it's so strange. Like, you don't want to go into the construction industry, you don't want to go into the trades, you don't want to do these things because you're just going to be priced out of a job somehow or whatever. And I'm like, that is the farthest thing from the truth at this point, because nothing gets built without us. Our little conversation right here does not happen without trades, financial professionals, project managers, owners, construct people building things.
The number one challenge for most contractors is finding skilled resources, right? Finding people with the skills to be able to deliver the projects that they want to bid on. I would like to think that there's been quite a bit of discussion with organizations like CFMA and some of our partner associations about encouraging, the next generation to come into the trades. And I've heard the word artisan used over and over again because it's about changing the branding related to what are you going to do with your life, right? What's your career going to look like? And college is a path that's led to success for quite a few folks, but it's not for everybody as well. And you can make a good living and have a great career and build yourself a good life by coming into the trades. And the trades have such a short supply right now because of some of the growth that we've seen over the last decade, but the growth that we're seeing now in data centers and needing skilled electricians and needing people that can help with the electrical grid and the water infrastructure that's necessary for these hyperscaler data centers, that those opportunities are there. And part of our role as CFMA and working with other organizations, we belong to a group of associations called Careers Building Communities, where we're trying to show people that there are careers in construction, in the built environment. They can be in the back office working as a, in the finance department. They could be out in the field as a project manager, could be managing the facility after it's up and running. So it is a career path that I think that more and more people will start to look at, given the high cost of college, given the low return on investment, given what's happened with student debt and other things. But getting into a profession, becoming an apprentice for an electrician or a carpenter or a plumber is going to help you develop the skills that are necessary. And oh, by the way, as we said, Robert, those are things that aren't going to get disrupted by AI, at least in the near term. So,
yeah.
yeah.
That was the thing. I keep thinking about that. Even if you're in the field, there are tons of people out there in the field. I was one of them. I wanted to be a business owner. I spent 10 years as a journeyman carpenter, but I knew I wanted to be a business owner someday. Now, there was a transition to be made there, but the opportunity is there. And I would also say, even if you go to college, you spend 4 years in college, I don't care what you do, you can still go to the trades after college.
Sure.
I know there's probably plenty of kids out there right now looking for a job. You know what I mean? They could really do well either to go into the trades or those types of things and then follow that path. There's no such thing as a quick path to success, Neil. You and I know that.
And you and I have proven there's no linear path either, right? I mean,
right.
You you make plans and God laughs, and you kind of take advantage of the opportunities that come before you. The fact that, going to college and then coming into the trades, not many people do that, but that could be an opportunity for those that want to own a business. But you can go from working in the business to working on the business as well, as you start to to build all of the building blocks that are necessary to help grow. I think that's a transition that a lot of owners, have to make over time. They're very good at what they do, whether it's as a GC or one of the trades. But the better you are, the more your business grows, the more you're going to have to be in a position where you're working on the business and, operating it as a business, not just I'm out there in the sun with a bunch of my friends because I want to frame a house. It's how you started, but now you've got to figure out how you take it to that next step. And that's where organizations like ours will certainly help provide those building blocks and that expertise in terms of where to take your business next.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I know we were talking about it before we started the recording, but that path, it's very interesting. I know there's a lot of folks out there that they look at that boss figure and they go, I could do that job.
People say that about me all the time, by the way. So they can.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What they don't see is kind of the hidden path behind it. They don't see how you got from one point to the next, and they don't see how you had to accept the transition points that came into it. Right. I know when I started my first, own company, and it was just me out there, I thought I was going to be building houses. Right. Now it's a very wide view. But then all of a sudden I realized I'm not actually out there building houses. I'm the guy that's, making sure the materials are on the job site. Everybody else is building houses. I'm the guy that's, having to write all the checks. I'm the guy locking up the doors at night. I'm the guy doing the payroll on, Friday night, or Thursday night, trying to get it ready for Friday. I'm the guy sweating over, every week, whether the bills that got paid or whether I got collected money from whatever job I was. Again, it's a job, but it's not the job maybe you were setting out to do. You start to realize there's this transition, right? And you said it. It's not working
In the business, it's working on the business. And what you just talked about, you're sweating to do X, Y, and Z. A large part of the leadership aspect, yes, there's perspiration, right? And you've got the battle scars to prove it, or you've done some of the work out in the field, but it's the preparation. It's benchmarking. It's understanding where the market's going. It's understanding how other businesses operate. It's being able to, be agile enough to incorporate new practices into your business and learn new things. And that's what kind of energizes me about what we have at CFMA and what our members have really evolved to is the sharing of information, the sharing of knowledge. And they may be companies that are doing similar things and could potentially bid against each other. They're very willing to help each other progress. And that's what's enabled this industry, I think, construction, to thrive. It's so fragmented that you need each other to continue to thrive and move forward as a group.
I think you're right in that. I've seen that. So I've been to chapter meetings, the Dallas chapter, and seen that very large chapter, a lot of folks in that chapter, and they're all very willing to kind of step to the plate and say, yeah, we've seen that. You should probably look at this. Or it's almost like, construction in a sense, it's not a competition. It's how far can we grow together?
That's right.
And I think that's interesting.
That's right. And by the way, thanks for the shout out to the DFW chapter. It's one of the most thriving chapters. I really enjoy going down there. And a lot of it's driven by the market as well, right? I mean, Dallas has done tremendously well in terms of attracting investment capital and growth. And I think we have members throughout the country that are in some phenomenal markets, whether it's the traditional growth of retail and office and industrial or some of the data center stuff that's coming in. And it's about working together to figure out where those opportunities are and networking and learning from each other. And it's so interesting how unique some of these markets are because it's what's happening locally that members are really being driven by. So what may be of interest to the folks in Charlotte is different than the chapter in Dallas is different than the one in Southern California. And but they're all able to culturally kind of come together and say, we're in this together. It's a co-opetition to a certain extent.
And I think that's something for a young business owner to understand as well. Your business is really not a competition. Your biggest competition is going to be with yourself. You got to be really honest with yourself. That's tough to do some days. Man, you got to be willing to delegate some of these opportunities. Again, when I start thinking about contact companies, like I said, you don't have to be in construction. When I start to think about contact founders and contact companies, you need these specialists. You need people like your certified, construction CPAs. You need these folks because you're in that business. And if you don't know what they know, you're going to have to work with them and get that into your system and to understand how your system's going to work better. And it's also a group, kind of like you said, it was like you share information. If you're trying to hide your information, I think it's a bad deal. I think that's not a wise move, because I don't think we grow past, some of the mistakes that we make in construction if we don't start sharing the mistakes.
One of the most amazing things about our membership, I mentioned we have general members who work for construction firms and associate members who work for the enabling infrastructure, the ecosystem, the construction technology firms. They get involved locally. We talked about the different chapters. You can tell the ones that are going to be successful because they're there to help solve problems and contribute to the growth of that community there, the networking and all of the engagement that happens locally. And that's what drives their success. We've got partners that are tremendous, and anybody can write a check, but it's really something else when you start to put your time and your talent as well as your treasure into that local community, and you start to really help solve problems. And that's a long-term path, but it pays dividends in terms of the return, because you build trust with the construction firms. You start to look at ways of actually evolving what you offer based on their needs, not necessarily just putting your business card out there and trying to sell them. And then ultimately, by solving those problems, you create opportunities for you and your firm. So it's unique in the culture that's been created at CFMA over the last 45 years and into the future has really been built on that whole community aspect of we're in this together. And our associate members, construction technology firms, as you said, are an important part of that.
So kind of leads to this idea, and it is something I've been thinking about as well. Age of AI, obviously upon us. One thing I always talk about when I start to talk about, AI and the technology involved and how it's going to impact your business. And I'll say this, the locality is going to be super important to be able to get any predictability out of whatever you're developing in AI. I had this conversation just the other day. You're not going to be able to take a team. You won't be able to take the data from a team in Texas and have them, drop them into North Dakota or drop them into California. You wouldn't be able to take those same numbers because the data from the locality, the people that you work with, whether it's the vendor, whether it's the weather, whether it's the subcontractors, whoever, they're different. The place is different. Everything is different. The financial model is going to be slightly different here and there. And so even at that level, like the Dallas chapter may deal with something more local, the professionals there may deal with something a little bit more local, whether it's the municipality rules, the compliance rules, all these kind of things. I just did an article on the California rules for wage 16. It's different. And I think when we start to talk about utilizing technology for predictability and all that kind of stuff and training our professionals to understand it, we still need to remember this is going to be very, very local to your area.
Construction is a global business, but it's very local in nature, right? Even the large global firms recognize that in terms of local knowledge and having this skilled workforce locally, having, a sense of what regulatory environment and zoning requirements you have locally. All of those are important aspects of being successful in delivering the projects. They're not all cookie cutter, right? I mean, even retailers who have maybe cookie cutter boxes that they're trying to put in different markets have to have some local knowledge and people on the ground that are going to be able to deliver the outcomes that they're looking for. So even if the outcomes are the same, even if that place where you're selling shoes and that box is going to look the same everywhere, the way you arrived at that, completing that project might be different in one local market versus another. And that knowledge is something that very many of our members bring, whether it's state taxes, whether it's lien waivers, whether it's how do you deal with some of the permitting that you've got to do. All of those aspects are important nuances that come from being embedded in that local market.
I think one of the big things that I saw and kind of being out there working with as a solutions engineer for some of the software that I worked with, sat across the table. It's a national company, probably 20, 25 people sitting around the table, each from the different areas that they were in. And we were looking at kind of one aspect of their business and how they were dealing with union wages. They had a very, very specific trade, and that trade had different unions in different regions. But if one person moved, and that's what I want to get to the kind of the complexity of what we're talking about when we start to talk about construction finance, the complexity of how to pay this person that they're short staffed. And then they got to pay this person to go from California or wherever they are to then go into Illinois and do their work in Illinois, and the complexity of understanding how that pay works, whether it be for the union agreement or whether it's if they go down south, that there's no union agreements, it's prevailing wage, and how do they pay them there? Well, I'm over here in California. I get paid more over here. I got paid my California wage. How do they, the complexity? I mean, literally, I was just sitting there going, okay, wait a minute. Give me just a second, because there must have been at least 6 different ways that this person should have gotten paid. And the people sitting at the table were going back and forth. No, that's not the way that works. It works this way. It was so crazy to see that happen.
And being in a position to provide that certainty to a workforce that you want to attract and retain and make sure that they're contributing to your success is an important part of what our members are doing, right? Certified payroll and making sure that the right rates are paid for the right projects is critically important, not only for measuring the success of the project, right? And what kind of work in progress you have and what kind of labor are you applying to it, but maintaining that workforce, maintaining the talent that you have on your team. And we work with quite a few construction technology firms that do a really good job of helping the CFO make sure that they're getting the right certified pay in the right markets for the right projects. It's no easy task. And that's why, when you think about construction, highly complex, highly risky, and margins are slim. So you've got to get those things right.
Well, yeah. And my thing was from the technology standpoint, specifically, if you're designing something that is any part of whether it's the payroll, the financial side of the world, and you're in the technology space, you need this knowledge. You can't go into this blind, because if you do go into a blind, you're going to get blindsided. That's exactly what's going to happen to your product. You're shooting yourself in the foot if you're not getting educated about how complex this system really is.
Mm-hmm.
I just sit there, like, that one instance for me, highlighted the fact that we're way into the weeds, and this is just one company who, even amongst themselves, were a little bit confused, and they've been doing it for years, still a little bit confused about exactly how they expect. Because not only does that happen, but then there's changes, right? Every new union agreement, there's a change where they don't get paid on Tuesday this week. They get paid on, Monday for this job because the union contract has changed. All those different things. It's again, we're looking for technologists to say they're coming in. We want to come in and solve your problems. You need to know what all the problems are first.
That's the first question, right? I think one of the things I talked about our associate members, the really successful ones, are very good at listening to what those problems are and being able to incorporate that into the offer, the product, the design. The unique nature of construction, makes our members, the construction financial professional, unique in themselves. I mean, the really good ones are able to take all that complexity and create clarity out of it, right? And that clarity for their firms allows them to decide where they're going to grow, how they're going to grow, what projects they're going to bid on. And it is that constant iteration between all of that complexity and then synthesizing it into something that really makes sense.
I wish I were smarter when I was running my business instead of trying to do it all myself, that I'd have hired some more professionals.
Well, that's a phrase that comes with age, right? We all think that. As you look back, you're like, "Oh, if I only did this," and you learn from it.
Yeah. So a little bit more into the age of AI, where do you guys see, as far as, from a organization, how the new technology fits into. Are you guys going to be providing training on the new products that come out? How's that work?
We do a number of different things in the technology realm, right? So it is a domain for our certification, CCIFP. So there are certificate courses that dive deep into technology. We partner with different technology firms and create forums either at our annual conference or as part of our regional conferences for people to understand what's coming and how to implement it and how to integrate different best-in-class technologies together. We work with a partner that we create some roundtables where we're bringing different technology firms in, not to sell, but to demo what they're doing, because you may be looking for a payment provider. You may be looking for somebody that's going to help you with integrating HRIS into your ERP. So being in a position where you're starting to put that stack together and understanding the options that are out there, understanding how to integrate those options so that it feels much more seamless than fragmented, are all things that, our role in helping our members do that. The other thing, we talked about how our people in construction collaborate in ways that maybe other industries don't. That network that you create through an affiliation with an organization like ours allows you to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm trying to implement this, and I know you've done it. What do I need to look out for? How do I work through this problem? And so the community aspect is important. The education aspect is important, but also having the right partners and those partners being in a position to listen to the problem and then coming up with product solutions or offerings that will help resolve those issues.
Actually seen that happen. I witnessed that in action at like I said, the Dallas chapter, sitting at the table. I can't remember specifically what was up, what topic had gotten brought up, but two folks were sitting right across from each other. We were all sitting kind of at the same table having the lunch, and then they had got to talking about a specific thing. They both shared, I think, a similar software.
Mm-hmm.
You're using this, okay, and then just like you said, spontaneously, like, hey, give me your card because I may have a question for you. I want to see what you guys think. Man, they share their cards. I'm sure they're probably best friends today, kind of thing. It was just, these were folks, they didn't know each other. They sat down at the table. The topic came up. These folks were using the same software. These two folks exchanged cards, say, hey, let's talk about this because I want to know, what you know.
It happens every day at one of our 90 plus chapters by happen chance. It happens online through, our online community. We call it Connection Cafe. People have a question about X and they're posting it, and they get a whole host of responses from other people that have gone through that experience. We offer some of the education and some of the roundtables that I talked about. And we also encourage, our subject matter experts to write articles either on our content hub or on our magazine Building Profits. So there's a lot of different ways to learn about what you're trying to solve and really drive engagement that way for us as well.
Yeah. A lot of cool stuff that goes on there. I do have a question kind of my own. You say there's an associate member. What's the difference between the two? I'm still confused a little bit about that.
Excellent question. So we have really two basic types of memberships. And we are an individual membership organization. We're not a trade association, but we partner with them, the ABCs and the AGCs of the world. If you work for a construction firm and you want to be informed about construction finance, you're a CFO, a controller, accounting professional, you become a general member at a construction firm. If you work for an accounting firm, a construction technology firm, a bank, a surety, anything that's in the enabling infrastructure that supports a construction firm, you become an associate member. And we've got individuals that go back and forth. They may start out life as an accountant working for a CPA firm, and then they get hired to be the controller at one of their clients, and now they're a general member. So it's about the industry itself and where you play.
I got you. So if you're a contact, that would be more of an associate kind of thing. If you're working for a contact firm, it would be more of an associate membership.
Absolutely, Robert. And if you came to our conference, which is May 30th through June 3rd in Scottsdale, Arizona this year, our exhibition floor is full of different associate member firms that are trying to understand what issues that CFOs or at construction firms are grappling with. But a lot of them increasingly are technology firms. And it's not simply the large ERPs who are there, but also all of these different specific modules that are important part of your tech stack. And so I'm really proud of what our team puts together there, but I'm equally proud of the fact that we're able to bring that community together and create opportunities, not only for established firms, but firms that are really coming into their own now.
Yeah, I think that's important too for the folks out there to understand is like when CFMA does an event, it is a fantastic event. A lot of technology in the exhibition areas to see, and it is immense to see the amount of areas that technology flows into that stack almost. I mean, everybody is there. All the major players are in there. If you're in the tech world, they're always at CFMA.
You will find your entire tech stack on our exhibition floor.
That is true.
And you will find lots of thought leadership and content in the programming that comes together. And that's just the conference we do annually. We do one in the fall in partnership with AGC. We've been doing that 30 years running. Our chapters put on anywhere from 12 to 14 regional conferences in a given year. And then all our 90 plus chapters, there's probably an event every day somewhere in the CFMA universe.
Well, Neil, I'm a big fan, and 45 minutes goes really, really quick. We were trying to do the Drive Time podcast. It's the Texas Drive Time podcast. That's what we try to do. But man, I really appreciate you being here today and talking with me. And I think it's so important for people to understand the financial side of your business, especially in the construction world, is so complex. And if you're in it, you already know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for you to understand there are people out there that are certified. They know construction. They work together. They collaborate to solve the problems that you might be having today. And it's probably a good idea to reach out to somebody and find yourself a true construction CPA, really.
Robert, I couldn't have said it better myself. I really am grateful for the opportunity to speak with you, and I'm sure we'll be doing more of these. So thank you.
Absolutely. Folks, that is the episode for today. Thank you, Neil Shah, for being with us. We will be back next week. Got some crazy stuff going on. Todd Zabel is going to be on the program. Wow. Yeah, I got lots to talk about there. But until next time, everybody stay safe out there. We'll see y'all soon.
Thank you.